Marvel Legendary is a cooperative deck-building game set in the Marvel Comics universe. Play with up to 4 of your friends as you recruit heroes to join your cause in the fight to defeat the evil Mastermind. To get things started, each player will begin the game with a pre-built deck consisting of 8 shield agents and 4 shield troopers. To begin, each player will shuffle their deck and draw 6 cards to make up their hand. You'll also want to place the Bystander, Wound, and Shield Officer cards in their respective locations on the board. Next, it's time to pick out the Mastermind. The base game comes with 4 Masterminds: Red Skull, Magneto, Doctor Doom, and Loki. For this example, we'll be choosing the beginner Mastermind, Red Skull. We will take his 4 tactic cards and place them face down on the Mastermind section of the game board with the Mastermind character card placed on top. Now that we have our Mastermind selected, it's time to select the Scheme. The Scheme represents the Mastermind's evil plan. For this example, we will be choosing Unleash the Power of the Cosmic Cube. If we look at the Scheme card, you'll notice each scheme has a certain setup. Ours in particular requires that we add 8 Scheme Twists into the villain deck. Scheme Twists represent successful executions in the Mastermind's plan. Next are the Master Strike cards. Regardless of the number of players, every villain deck will contain 5 Master Strike cards. These represent the Mastermind getting his hands dirty on the battlefield. The remaining cards in the villain deck consist of villain groups, henchman groups, and bystanders. The amount of each will depend on the number of players. Looking at the Mastermind card, you'll notice that each Mastermind has a section labeled Always Leads. This means that each Mastermind has a predetermined group of villains or henchmen that will be added to the villain deck. For Red Skull, we will be adding the villain group labeled Hydra. Bystanders represent the civilians that have been caught in the crossfire. We'll go more in depth on bystanders in the gameplay section. The hero deck is much quicker to assemble. The base game includes up to 15 heroes to choose from, each with a set of 14 cards. Most of the time, all hero decks will include 5 heroes. Heroes may be chosen based on preference or at random. I've gone ahead and chosen Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, Spider-Man, and the Hulk. Once both decks are completed, shuffle each deck and place them into their respective areas on the game board. Next, we will draw the top 5 cards from the hero deck and place them face up into the Headquarters Zone. The Headquarters Zone represents the area in which all players may recruit heroes to join their cause. Pick a player to go first, and you're ready to begin playing. For each turn, the player will start by drawing a card from the villain deck. What you do next is dependent on the card drawn. If the card drawn is a villain, place the card into the rightmost section of the city. If the villain has an effect labeled Ambush, immediately resolve this effect before continuing on with the player's turn. The city is where the majority of the action will take place, and is divided into 5 areas: the sewers, bank, rooftops, streets, and bridge. Only one villain can occupy a space in the city at a time. If a villain is added to the city, move any and all villains to the left 1 space. Villains need only be moved if they are pushed by another villain. If a villain is moved out of the city, that villain will have escaped, and the following things must happen. A hero that costs 6 or less is KO'd from the headquarters, which is decided by the current player. If the villain had any bystanders when it escaped, each player must discard 1 card from their hand. Some villains may also have an ability labeled Escape that goes into effect upon escaping the city. Once all effects have been resolved, place the escaped villain and any captured bystanders into the escaped villain section. When a bystander is drawn from the villain deck, immediately place the bystander underneath the villain closest to the villain deck. If there are no villains in the city, place the bystander next to the Mastermind. In order to rescue a bystander, you must defeat the villain that captured them. Upon defeating a villain, place the villain and any bystanders captured by the villain in your own personal victory pile. The victory pile will keep track of your victory points. More on that later. If a scheme twist is drawn, immediately enact the corresponding effect written on the scheme card. Be sure to keep track of how many scheme twists have been drawn so far. Many schemes do different things depending on the number of scheme twists drawn. If the number of scheme twists is not important, simply place the card in the KO pile after use. Similarly, if a Master Strike is drawn from the villain deck, immediately enact the corresponding effect on the Mastermind card. In this example, each player must KO a hero from their hand. KOing a card permanently removes it from the game, so choose wisely. At some point in the game, players will be forced to take wounds. Wounds are cards that are added to your discard pile and serve no purpose other than to fatten up your deck with useless cards. Wounds can be removed in a couple of ways, either by KOing them from a hero ability or by resolving the healing effect written on the card. Some heroes, however, greatly benefit from wounds, like our friend the Hulk, so plan carefully. Of course, in order to fight the villains, you're going to need to recruit heroes. Looking at the hero cards, you'll notice a couple of things: the name of the card and the hero name, the team icon the hero is associated with, the card type, its recruiting points, its attack points, any special abilities it may have, and the cost required to recruit said card. On each player's turn, that player may play any and all cards from his or her hand, accumulating all attack and recruit points accessible to you for that turn. Once your points are totaled, you may use them how you see fit, defeating enemies in the city or recruiting heroes from the headquarters. If a hero is recruited from the headquarters area, immediately replace that hero with another card from the hero deck. If no heroes catch your eye, you are more than welcome to purchase a shield officer instead for more recruiting power later on. When playing cards, some heroes have special abilities. Abilities are triggered by playing a card with the corresponding symbol to the left of the ability. Some cards have effects that only work with the characters that share the same team symbol. Synergizing your deck around ability combos is a great way of getting more out of your cards. Keep in mind, however, that abilities can only be used once per turn. Similar to recruiting heroes, fighting villains can be done by using all attack points available to you on your turn. Defeat villains by spending attack points equal to the attack point value on the villain card. Some villains have an effect labeled Fight. Resolve this effect before adding the villain to your victory pile. Both used and recruited cards are sent to that player's discard pile once a player is finished with their turn. Players then draw a new hand and will repeat this process until their deck runs out of cards. Once a player runs out of cards in their deck, that player can then shuffle their discard pile into a new deck. Of course, the main goal in Legendary is to defeat the Mastermind. Fighting a Mastermind is nearly identical to fighting a villain. When a player has enough attack points to fight the Mastermind, select a Mastermind tactic card at random and immediately resolve the effect written on the card. Upon resolving a tactic card, that player may obtain any bystanders that have been captured by the Mastermind. Each Mastermind has 4 tactic cards. The Mastermind is only defeated when all 4 tactic cards have been resolved. Upon defeating the Mastermind, players can then total up all cards in their victory pile. The number of victory points is determined by the number written in the red circle for each card. Each player will remove points for any penalties. The player with the highest score is considered the MVP for the game. Be sure to visit your rulebook for further explanation and consider checking out the many expansions for Legendary that add a ton more heroes, villains, and strategies for you to enjoy.